morning, everyone, and welcome back to Barnstable This Morning. Just about 22 minutes toward the top of the hour on this Tuesday morning. I'm Sarah Colvin, and joining me live on the phone, I welcome our Cape and Island State Senator, Dan Wolf. Dan, good morning.
Good morning, Sarah. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Another frigid morning on the Cape, but otherwise good.
Exactly. Enjoyed a little bit of those quasi-warmer temperatures yesterday. I have to say it was nice to be outside and not have to be bundled up in 18 layers out there.
Well, the good news is I think that the long-term pattern is changing. So I think by the end of the week and next week looks warmer. So that's the good news.
Exactly. So, Dan, I want to talk a little bit about income inequality, certainly something that we've been hearing a lot about lately, and I understand that you were here, on the Cape this weekend for a screening of a documentary called Inequality for All. Tell me a little bit about this event and about really what we're talking about in terms of income inequality.
Well, I think the issue is striking a chord, Sarah. There was an event out at the Wellfleet Harbor Actors Theater main stage, which holds, I think, around 250, maybe 300 people, to do a screening of Robert Reich's movie Inequality for All, which, for those who don't remember, Robert Reich was the Secretary of Labor under Bill Clinton, and he's a teacher out on the West Coast, I think at Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley. And he writes a lot in the paper. He's still very active. He's on television a lot. And his main issue right now really is the widening gap that you and I have talked about the last several years, wealth and income inequality in the United States. And there was a screening of the movie, and I think it was a really healthy sign. It was a standing room only crowd in the middle of January on Cape Cod, and I think that speaks volumes for the fact that the issue is really starting to resonate amongst people.
And not just on Cape Cod, but in Wellfleet, where usually it's really quiet this time of year.
Yeah, I was expecting maybe 2 or 3 people to show up who made a wrong turn, and actually people came from the Mid-Cape to see the movie, and afterwards we had a discussion group that was led by myself and Barry Bluestone, who is a professor in Northeastern and teaches public policy, and this is really a sweet spot for Barry as well. So we had a really good discussion for about an hour after the movie screen. And, Sarah, there's the latest kind of startling fact is the one that Oxfam put out yesterday, which shows that 85 individuals in the world, 85 individuals, that's the number, control as much wealth as half of the population on the planet, which right now is about 3.2 billion people. So, it's in this country, it's almost as bad. You and I have discussed that there's the top 45 individuals control as much net worth as half of the population of the United States, or about 160 million people. So however you slice it and look at it, it's a widening gap between those who have more and more and those at the bottom who have less and less. And regardless of whether in your heart you feel like that's a bad thing, which I and many others do, the reality, even as an economist, you look at that and you just say it's not sustainable, because as more and more of the population has less and less ability to partake in our economy, the economy becomes more and more problematic just because there's less demand out there because people don't have money. So, there's a lot of ways and perspectives to look at the issue, but it's not a good trend, and we have to figure out ways to reverse it.
So as we look at that, I mean, obviously, you think about wealthy people and that 85 people versus half the population on the planet is certainly a very staggering figure. And you think about money, you think about wealth, you think about salary structure. There's so much that comes into play, and whereas there are many people who have successfully earned their wealth in their own right, where we're looking at kind of more of an income inequality. So talk to me a little bit about where do we see solutions in this, and how can we get this to change?
Well, and it's where government comes in. If there are folks out there who think government has no role in this, and if that's the case, and if we just continue to back government out of this equation, the problem is going to become more and more until I think the economy becomes so top-heavy that it topples over. So I think the question you're asking is, what's government's role? How do we as a society reflect our values in our behavior, and what can we possibly do about this? And so that's really the issue. And, you and I have discussed the minimum wage issue. I would say very simplistically, there's 2 things that we, as a society should look at doing. That is, first, raising the minimum wage and trying to get more money into the hands of people at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder, because we know that they're going to spend it, and that will get more money into the economy. The other is to look at the people at the top and just recheck our tax policy in this country and make sure that the tax policy actually reflects the way that the economy is structured, which right now it doesn't. We have about as horizontal a tax structure right now in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and in the country that we've ever had historically, and yet we have the biggest disparity of wealth. And really what you need is a tax policy that reflects the economy at any given moment. So, if our economy was horizontally structured right now, we'd want a relatively flat structure. But with our economy still out of kilter, we need a tax structure that is very graduated and progressive and reflects how the economy is structured. So we have a tax policy that is not relevant to our current economy. We need to fix that. So simplistically, raising the wages at the bottom will put more money into circulation. Having more progressive taxation will actually put more money into play as well. And then the question is, what do we do with the revenue? And the answer is, we build the future that all of us want. We rebuild our energy infrastructure. We rebuild our transportation infrastructure. On the Cape here, we have a great wastewater infrastructure project we need to do. We put people to work doing jobs, building a future for our kids and grandchildren. The prosperity is there right now in our society. What we're not doing is sharing that prosperity in ways that benefit enough people. And I think that's the challenge of our generation.
Right, absolutely, certainly, a challenge, and I think, a challenge as well to deal with it even in the higher levels of the legislature when we think about, the United States government and, the representatives that are serving there. I think that when we think about that group, they do tend to track in the more wealthy category as opposed to the middle or the lower class category. So I think that, do you see that the concern for the middle and lower class really isn't there because it's not representative of the lives that our higher elected officials lead?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. More and more people in elected office, especially in Washington, less so on Beacon Hill, but especially in Washington, represent the millionaires and are just losing touch with people in the middle at the bottom. You don't hear the Democratic Party, for example, talking about poverty and poor people that much. We've certainly seen a disconnect with those organized groups that represent labor in this country. Generally, those people reflect the interests of the middle and working classes also. So there is more and more of a disconnect between our political process. I think the good news is the State of the Union tonight, we have our president. He's going to focus on wealth and income inequality. And the State of the State address, Val Patrick, canceled last week because of the snow, is going to be speaking tonight. And I know a major part of his address tonight is going to be about that as well. So I think the good news, back to the Occupy movement and even before that, is that there's rising awareness about this, and therefore I think there's going to be more attention and hopefully more resources put to the problem.
So, Dan, when you were talking with Cape Codders who came to the screening of the documentary in Wellfleet over the weekend, what did you hear from people? I mean, granted, just seeing the number of people that came out to watch this documentary, that is an indicator that people are concerned. But what did you hear from the people? What questions were they asking? What ideas were they putting forth in that session?
I think the biggest question is, what do we do about it? Which is good because people are less looking to quantify it anymore. I think it's acknowledged that this is a problem that exists. And the discussion we had really is, what can we do about it? And I think, on the grassroots level, there needs to be more involvement, engagement, activism, which is a good thing. On the political level, we need to be looking to elect people who are able to both understand the nature of the problem and articulate good solutions. So I think you're going to hear that as part of the year we have now in front of us, looking at gubernatorial candidates, lieutenant governor, and treasurer and attorney general, and all of the elections that we have. So I think now that it's in the consciousness, political leaders and those running for office are going to be forced to articulate a better and better vision of how we make this shared prosperity work better for more people. So that's the good news, and I think that's what we're hearing from the crowd. Sadness about it, frustration about it, some anger about it, but a real resolute crowd there to actually do something about it. And there weren't a lot of young people, typical with the demographic on the Cape. I'd say the average of the audience was probably 65 years old. But the youth, and I have 3 daughters that are on and off Cape Cod now. The youth right now really is I think waking up to this and looking to the older generations to do something about it. And you're going to hear more and more activism on the college campuses and among those who just have gotten out of college. looking at a society that just isn't providing well enough for enough people.
Without a doubt. Well, Dan, I thank you so much, as always, for joining us here on Barnstable This Morning. A pleasure to talk with you, and we will talk with you again next Tuesday morning. Have a great day.
Thanks, Sarah. Have a great week.
Thanks.
We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye-bye. Cape and Island State Senator Dan Wolf joining us as he does each and every Tuesday morning. Still more to come here on Barnstable This Morning. We're going to get our details.